welcome back to the Analyst Lounge. I am happy to welcome LS, who is kind of in the computer right now.
Kind of in computer.
But thank you for taking the time to come off of your co-stream of the LCS and join us.
No, I'm really happy to be here. So this is a very fun experience.
Yeah, so the segment I really wanted to do with you, because you have this super cool draft tool that we have up. It's drafting.gg. It's LS's own draft tool, and it's even available in English, Korean, and Chinese. So you can do it in multiple languages. I really wanted to, obviously, drafting and itemization are, I think, the two things that are like your strength as an analyst, right? And the things you talk about the most. Wanted to use your tool to kind of go over this draft that we just saw. Before I get into this one, I did want to ask you, what if you thought of TL and 100 Thieves drafts just holistically throughout the split?
I feel like, well, when APA ended up coming in, I felt like there was a noticeable change because it seems like he's a lot more malleable in draft in terms of the champions that he can play, and obviously that drives some bans his way, right? The Ziggs one is the most notable, and I think that he has a lot of other champions like up his sleeve that we might end up seeing in playoffs, which is going to be really interesting. I think 100 Thieves are really all over the place with their identity, but generally what'll end up happening is they find their niche and then they'll just stick to it, right? And we saw that in spring playoffs. So we'll see how the remainder of the series goes.
That's interesting that you said they're all over the place, because I feel like talking to a lot of LCS teams and players, they're like, oh yeah, we know exactly what 100 Thieves are going to do. I talked to Nuke Duck about it earlier today, and he actually said, he's like, I don't think they were expecting this draft. So we'll start with 100 Thieves just because they ended up losing this game. What did you think of their approach to the red side draft?
So the really odd thing about the red side draft for me is that they open with, so the enemy opens B1 Tristana. So this is a multi-flex champion, right? It can go top lane, it can go mid lane, it can go AD carry. Top almost never happens, so it's mostly just mid and AD carry. And then you have R1 and R2, which stands for red side 1 and 2, Azir Rel. And both of these two champions, sure, Azir can be a lane neutralizer against Tristana, but she's still going to have shove. They're still going to be able to push against one another. But Tristana has anti-engage against these champions. So those as a response seems really weird to me. Rakan, Ezreal come in, B2, B3, and then there's an R3 Cassante. And I feel like at this point, Summit's pool is too wide to ban out all the remaining champions that can answer Cassante in top lane. And Cassante must go top lane, right? You're not doing any funny stuff with Azir at this point inside of the draft. So you can't ban them all out. So now you have two short-range, hard-engaged champions, Azir, who's going to be stationary, and they're threatening to outrange you with Ezreal and Tristana. They have way higher mobility. They have longer range advantage. I mean, I would argue that they have more scaling at this point in the draft. It just gets really weird. And when the Renata comes in on R4, I'd say the Renata blind is kind of weird. Now, some people might not say that it's blind because they already know about the Rakan, but it is blind in the sense that the three champions that she's staring down right now, she's really bad against. So without knowing what Team Liquid are going to do on B4, B5, I feel like the Renata is a blunder on R4. And then the Kennen and the Poppy, I actually think, are also kind of poor picks because it rewards the Renata in a way. And so it gets a little weird, and I think the draft becomes somewhat even, but I still favor Team Liquid in the end.
Yeah, I do feel like whenever we talk about drafts, or like whenever I listen to you talk about drafts, it's always, you know, here or here that things start going really wonky. An interesting thing, 100 Thieves actually did select red side again for this game.
Ooh, okay.
So using this tool, I actually wanted to just talk to you about, like, if you're assuming that TL are going to continue their focus, putting APA on the Tristana, making sure that, you know, Core is on the Rakan or Yan is on the Ezreal. Like, if you're kind of assuming that they're going to have similar focus, what would you like to see differently from 100 Thieves off the bat?
So right off the bat, I would want the Kai'Sa ban completely dropped because Kai'Sa, so I'm probably one of the few people that's like really vocal about this. I don't think that Kai'Sa can be blinded in the sense that one of the things about Kai'Sa that makes her really strong is she has 3 different modes. She has the Luden's mode, she has the Gwynsu's mode, and then she has the crit mode. And all of those play very differently, right? She has the Leandri's mode, but we've never seen it yet, I don't think. Maybe Unforgiven did it or something, or I don't know. I think he had a tweet where he did it, but Leandri's will probably be the only thing in the future once the nerf comes through. The thing about Kai'Sa is that she requires her 3 items to really come online, and that doesn't happen until 25, 26 minutes in game. 25, 26 minutes typically happens, before Soul, right? Or like after Soul, what I mean. So Soul stacking team compositions are really, really dominant against Kai'Sa, because Soul is going to be contested around 22, 23 minutes, and that's her weakest point. So if teams early rotate Kai'Sa and then you have Soul stacking, she's at her most vulnerable periods, and she can't provide any value at that point. And also, like, champions like Ivern are really good against her. Ivern very, very strong inside of the meta right now. So I think dropping the Kai'Sa ban, and banning Tristana, who is a lot more problematic for neutralizing, just because even when you neutralize Tristana, it doesn't feel nearly as rewarding as neutralizing a lot of the other mid lane picks, because she's not as susceptible to counter picks as a lot of the other mid laners, right? If Azir comes in and stuff, there's a lot of counter picks to Azir, right? Xerath is open. Ziggs is obviously banned here. But other, like, artillery mages exist, right? Aurelion Sol is a champion that exists, even though people haven't been playing him. Veigar still exists. People don't play him. So these types of things.
Can you see, just because kind of knowing these 2 junglers, I also think Ivern is really broken right now.
Yes.
And I agree with what you said about Kai'Sa, especially considering you did see 100 Thieves actually getting that early Drake stacking, right? It was becoming a huge pain point for TL.
Yeah.
And do you see either of these junglers prioritizing the Ivern?
No, I don't see either of them prioritizing Ivern, but I do think right, 100 Thieves could prioritize lane dominant champions and actually stack Drakes, and I think if that happens, Yun, when he has picked Kai'Sa, has not looked amazing on it. So, and I don't think that I don't think Team Liquid would flex it mid for APA. So I think that, like, that would be a really big weak point, because I think that Pioshik also functions very, very poorly when his laners are not either neutral in lane or when they're actually just losing lane.
Okay. Well, I actually wish we had so much more time to pick your brain, but I know you probably want to get back to your stream, and we have to get into game. Thank you so much for taking the time. It was a pleasure, as always, and we will toss it to the casters.
See you later. Bye-bye.
All right,
thank you so
very
much.
much, Lounge. And now it's time for